After years of love bombing, I realize that my toxic marriage leads me to feel unsafe, especially when he says he'll kill me and my dog. A brief overview: I am a 42-year-old female married to a 39-year-old male. We have been a couple for 4.5 years and have been married for almost 4 years. The initial phase of our relationship was extraordinary. I have been engaging in extensive reading and research to gain insight into our situation, and I genuinely feel that there was some love bombing at the start, and neither of us is fully emotionally healthy. I would like to share some information about myself. I clearly have attachment difficulties based on my research. I find that preoccupied, anxious attachment applies to me. I also exhibit tendencies of codependency and have a propensity to caretake and rescue others. My history features relationships with individuals who have taken advantage of my nurturing disposition and desire to help, which has ultimately led to my downfall and is incredibly unhealthy in the absence of firm boundaries. Reflecting on my life, it seems my ability to set boundaries depends significantly on the person involved. A friend recently inquired, "What happened to you in your youth that made you feel you deserved less?" The truth is that I grew up without a father and had a teenage mother, which has had an impact. My grandmother was my primary caretaker, and while her love is the purest I know, the emotional scars from absent or unreliable parents can linger far longer than one realizes. I wish individuals on this platform would also address their personal challenges when discussing their partner's issues. So there you have it, a glimpse into my need for validation and lack of boundaries. I recently informed my husband of my desire for a divorce. I no longer wish to continue in this cycle. Perhaps my mindset is skewed, but when I genuinely consider it all, the notion of reliving any of this turmoil simply compels me to sever all connections. Even our current interactions are not healthy. We are currently separated, yet he seeks to return. He exhibits hostility, has significant cognitive distortions, and allows these distortions to dictate his perception of reality, leaving his thoughts detached from reason. Some of our negative exchanges stem from my own fatigue. I have invested so much in this relationship that I am drained, and I can no longer muster the same effort, energy, and love that I previously could. I believe I have started prioritizing myself a bit more. I have compiled what appears to be an extensive list of issues I have faced throughout the past year while contemplating divorce. I realize that the mere fact I am even weighing this decision and seeking others' opinions should serve as my answer, but I continuously hold on to hope that people can change, particularly the man I fell in love with initially. This hope, along with the small gestures of manipulative affection he occasionally offers amidst his outbursts of anger and aggression, perpetuates my sense of attachment. I frequently reassure myself that things may improve if specific conditions are met. Thus, I continue to hold on with my latest, maybe, hinging on his potential return home. That has been my last hope. Perhaps things will improve when he returns. I suppose I'm seeking your advice on what you would say if I were your friend in this situation, or what you would want to hear if you were in my place. What helped you if you have experienced a similar situation? Thank you for your support. The phrasing and tense of this narrative may seem inconsistent, as I have written it over the course of a year, more like free-form journal entries, influenced by my emotions. Here is my lengthy list. You have threatened to kill me on several occasions. You have threatened to harm my family. You have threatened to kill my pet. You have assured me that you would not physically hurt me. Instead, the mere threat of violence suffices for you. You have claimed ownership over my dog. You have asserted that any of my dogs belong to you, despite my being the one who cares for all of them. You once choked one of our dogs, lifting it into the air because it was frightened of getting its nails trimmed. You made me feel guilty for prioritizing my safety and well-being over you and the dogs when I felt unsafe enough to consider calling the authorities. You distort my words to fit your own twisted interpretations. I despise that I react so strongly to you. I can no longer manage my anger effectively and end up exploding, which is not who I am. Name-calling and shouting are not traits I wish to embody, and I resent that you drive me to behave this way. I cannot tolerate your constant, unfounded accusations of infidelity. It is disrespectful and hurtful to me, and I feel rage at the persistent false allegations. Your insecurity does not equate to the issues at hand. You have deceived me about your phone use. You claim to care and ask about my day, but when I begin to recount a story, you often interrupt or announce you are hanging up. This indicates that you are not genuinely interested in what I have to say, but rather play a role to keep me engaged. Since I feel unheard and you dismiss my job, I struggle to find topics for conversation with you. Consequently, you label me as bland and boring. I am not at all boring. Rather, I feel as though you do not care, making dialogue unsafe since you twist my words, leading to conflict. You show no maturity or regard for our financial limits, expecting me to accommodate your wants and taking advantage of my generosity, which leaves me in a constant state of frustration and stress. You have the audacity to expect me to do more for you than you are willing to do for me, and when I initiate boundaries, you take offense. You have squandered a significant portion of my settlement money without any concern. You imply that you will offer me less than your best because you have always gotten what you wanted. You threaten to throw hot oatmeal at me. You have called me derogatory names for not managing to clean after working a long day while you did not work. You took my car and left me stranded at home for days, only contacting me to request money. I had to rely on coworkers for transportation to work, for errands, and to purchase cigarettes. You would disappear for days and then accuse me of being unfaithful. Where would you think I was during that time? I remember the time I had to order an Uber and pay $20 because you fell asleep in the car when you knew I needed my vehicle for work. I recall asking about what was inside the car door, only to find out it was one of your friend's vomit from the previous night that you must have overlooked. I distinctly remember you asking me to smuggle some tobacco into the prison for you, and when I refused, you became upset. Seriously, that's my freedom at stake. You explicitly instructed me not to come and see you, and then you got angry when I followed your directions. You referred to me with derogatory terms when I was scheduled to work until 5 p.m. and had not left early. You grasped my neck as if to strangle me because I did not assist you in moving items from your truck to the car, and you still insist. I stopped myself, or I would never truly harm you. You had me follow you and then became erratic, threatening to kill me and tossing items from the truck into my car. You sent me money with the intention of helping us move out of our current location, only to later demand it back. I was so eager for us to relocate that I hesitated to send it, but you threatened to kill me and my family if I did not send it. You insisted that if I did not pick you up from the gas station, you would harm me. I did not go because I was frightened of you. You told me you would physically harm me if I didn't remain silent in my parents' basement. You claimed you would have a woman perform oral sex on you, which you supposedly did not act upon. The following night, you answered the phone in my presence with, "Hey baby, thanks for the oral sex. You're amazing. I will see you soon," before throwing pizza at me in the car and threatening to hit my face against the steering wheel if I refused to get you money from the ATM. At a motel, you blocked the door, threatening to kill me and my family because I wouldn't let you take my car. I feared for my safety due to your threats, and the dogs seemed to understand that they needed to protect me. You threatened to physically harm me and kill my family if I did not retrieve a key to the room made for you. Since your incarceration, you have threatened my safety with statements indicating you would harm me, my dog, my family, or kill my dog. You often bring up my past indiscretions, specifically a one-time encounter I had with someone the week prior to our meeting, which is irrelevant since I didn't know you then. You have hurled slurs at me, labeling me with derogatory terms. You told me I was incompetent and foolish because I did not pack your belongings the way you would have preferred. You consistently belittle me and criticize everything I do, particularly if you would have approached it differently. You repeatedly accuse me of infidelity. Any noise you perceive in the background becomes evidence of my infidelity. You label me a promiscuous person due to my job, suggesting that I am there for validation. You imply that I could never enjoy my life, as I would eventually hear the end of it from you and feel guilty about it. It seems you wish to isolate me from both my family and friends while you engage in any behavior whenever you please. You exhibit controlling behavior. You are permitted to look at my phone, yet I am not allowed to look at yours. You monitor how long I take to complete tasks, and if you feel I took too long grocery shopping, you assume I must be unfaithful. You forbid me from having any social media unless it is shared with you. You hide your interactions with other women, Engage in whatever behavior you choose, but expect me to sever ties with all my acquaintances. Heaven forbid if you overhear a male voice in the background when I am out, as you would then automatically assume I am cheating. I have changed, which is entirely accurate, and I struggle to recognize how I could ever return to the woman I was when we first met. That woman was treated with kindness, dignity, and respect, not subjected to the volatile man whose moods I can never predict. When I shared that my best friend had passed, you offered no consolation. You continue to act as if you don't care. Throughout this entire experience, it feels as if when I require my needs to be met, I must fulfill them on my own. But when you desire your needs met, we both must cater to them. You play manipulative mind games. For instance, when I ask if you want me to pick you up or if you prefer a ride-share service, you will say ride-share. Upon clarifying, you later get upset with me for arranging the ride-share as it deviated from what you unexpectedly wanted. I am done trying to read your mind because if I were to surprise you, you might still be angry for not following your specific request. There is no winning with you. You utilize your incarceration, addiction, family struggles, trauma, anything as justification for mistreating me. I have persistently conveyed that your tone is crucial. How you communicate with me matters, yet you are indifferent to this. You cannot expect me to accept your disrespect and not anticipate facing similar treatment in return. When I delivered your items to you yesterday, you were yelling and disrespectful on the phone. I retorted in kind, and you threatened to harm me due to your belief that I was in the presence of others. You prioritize maintaining a facade of a fantastic relationship with others while operating under falsehood behind closed doors. I told you on 11/26/24 that your behavior makes me feel like I do not wish to live anymore. During our ongoing arguments, I reach a point of hopelessness and despair. In response, you told me to take a knife and end my life. When I inquired about what you would gain if I committed suicide after your encouragement, you casually stated, insurance money, which may be true. However, it is more plausible that you would face a prison sentence for assisted manslaughter. You informed me that it wouldn't matter if I left, as you have multiple women lined up, and it wouldn't bother you. When I refuse to do something for you, you resort to manipulation, stating that you'll merely find another woman to take my place, as there are plenty willing to do so. You track my location while disabling yours. I reside in a rural area, so the accuracy of tracking is less precise than in a city. I often receive calls and FaceTimes while asleep to verify that I am home, as you have labeled me a deceitful person, assuming I am unfaithful, according to your views, and coupled with the fact that Find My iPhone is less reliable in my area, which you are aware of. I recall a time when you had a new job and asked me to remind you to wake up and get ready. I did just that, getting you dressed and making coffee while packing a lunch. However, as you exited, you decided not to go and laughed in my face. I now find myself second-guessing my every move. One day I began gathering trash, then abruptly placed it all back because I feared you would return and accuse me of concealing evidence of my infidelity. I arranged a phone call with you and your attorney, but when he did not answer, you redirected your anger toward me, insisting that I should cease assisting you because I couldn't do anything correctly, vowing that you would never call me again. Regardless, you called back, and as I answered while in a meeting with my boss, you accused me of caring more for my job than for you, an outright falsehood. I had no time to endure verbal abuse when I had done nothing wrong. My boss, a therapist, overheard much of the discussion since you were raised in an aggressive tone from the start and asked if I had a safety plan. I attempted to assist you in adjusting your glasses into your new frames, but the establishment refused to do it without a prescription. You came down hard on me, criticizing my inability to do anything correctly and declaring that you would never rely on me for help again. You asserted that I was clumsy and didn't know how to communicate with people. Eventually, I picked you up, and we returned together, only to receive the same information once more. I drove you to your eye doctor appointment, and when you got in the car, you wanted to smoke. That was fine, but you hesitated to open the window for fear of feeling cold. You erupted in anger, throwing a tantrum instead of simply rolling down the window a small amount. I cannot comprehend this reaction, and then you didn't even offer me the ridiculous remark of wanting to respect me. Moreover, I had to intervene to prevent you from purchasing glasses that day because you had other bills scheduled for payment. You were unbelievably furious. I suggested alternatives, but you rejected all of them. We went hunting for quarters but failed to find any, and you decided to take the $10 meant for laundry and wasted it on a lottery machine, where you won nothing, purely out of frustration because you couldn't obtain quarters. Your level of rage and irrational decision-making in response to your anger is extraordinary. You assert that you say hurtful things in moments of anger, yet you do not truly mean them. That mindset does not absolve you of responsibility for your words. You remain accountable for both your actions and your statements, regardless of your emotional state. You have told me that you have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a fact I can certainly recognize in your actions and behaviors. You have claimed you require medication, yet I have little trust that you would adhere to a treatment plan. You were prescribed medication when we first entered this relationship, stopped taking it, and when I encouraged you to seek mental health assistance about a year later, you went, received medication, but subsequently stopped attending sessions and taking the medication. Having mental health challenges does not excuse your behavior, as I also deal with my own mental health issues and work diligently to address them. I used to simply acquiesce to your demands, but for a while now, I have been expressing my frustration and concerns, and you dislike it. Sometimes, I admit, I become reactive, and it manifests as anger, which causes me to feel as if I'm the problem. When I convey my concerns to you, they do not lead to productive discussions. You respond by saying you feel attacked. But how can I be attacking you when I simply wish to share how your words and actions affect me? For example, hey, when you criticize my decisions or offer suggestions implying my efforts are subpar, it makes me feel worthless and like I cannot do anything correctly in your eyes. This, however, leads to anger from your end, claiming I am belittling you when I am honestly voicing my feelings about how you treat me and how we might improve our communication. This isn't a personal assault. Over the past 3.5 years, you have expressed multiple times that you did not want to marry me. You have repeatedly postponed marriage and conveyed your wish to change that sentiment. You have frequently stated that our relationship is over, claiming you are single and seek a divorce. All of this feels like manipulation intended to provoke a specific response from me or regain control over my emotions. For a long time, I have implored you to take a different route, believing that marriage requires effort and commitment toward someone you love. This seems to serve as emotional manipulation intended to maintain coercive control over me. In the last 6 months or more, when you mention divorce, I now respond with indifference and tell you to proceed if that is truly your wish. I am not attempting to manipulate. I genuinely feel that separation is acceptable. In fact, I filled out divorce paperwork and have been prepared to file for the past month. My primary challenge lies in allowing too much time to pass, allowing you to feed me intermittent gestures of affection. This cycle is exhausting, and I yearn to free myself from it. Every moment, I wish for you to be the person you were when we initially came together, and I yearn to reclaim the softer, more open version of myself I used to be. Instead, I am trapped in a cycle of guessing your mood and figuring out how to maneuver through it with the least emotional turmoil. Story 2. I moved in with my BF quickly, faced his anger issues, and felt unsafe. One day he snapped over food, and the cops showed up. Relationship context, and the reasons I moved in quickly. We began our romantic relationship 6 months ago. Initially, he was simply drawn to my appearance when he encountered me as a clerk at a store located near my apartment complex. He asked me out shortly after, which felt particularly fast since it followed my breakup from my first healthy, loving relationship. That relationship ended largely due to financial issues and tension with my ex's family, and I struggled with the decision to part ways, fearing I might never see my ex again. I was in a fragile emotional state. I told him I would consider his invitation, but he persisted, and eventually, a month later, I asked him out. He frequently reminds me how much my hesitation annoyed him, but I genuinely needed that time to think. I moved in with him rather quickly because, as I mentioned, my ex had significant financial problems, and to sum it up, he didn't inform me about the rent until I was in a position where I had to find a place to stay the day before an eviction notice. One of our elderly neighbors, with whom I had a close relationship, allowed me to stay in exchange for cleaning his apartment since his cats were not litter trained. I would not have considered moving in with my boyfriend if I hadn't felt secure in his home. He seemed calm and was openly gay, which made me, as a woman, feel comfortable enough to take one of the bedrooms. However, he would often use drugs like cocaine and meth around me while also drinking, often offering me substances that I had previously used intermittently from the ages of 15 to 18. I had stopped using altogether, but during my periods of single depression, it became harder to resist. Additionally, he frequently invited very young men from Grindr or even straight strangers over almost daily, sometimes multiple at a time, all of whom would hit on me while I was simply trying to unwind after work and cleaning his place. On one occasion, they even attempted to open the door while I was expressing that I needed some rest, but thankfully, it was locked. I didn't want to delve into too much detail, but it's evident that these circumstances contributed to me feeling extremely unsafe. My boyfriend suggested that he wouldn't mind my staying with him and even welcomed my cats. I thought this was a straightforward decision, and for about a month, I didn't notice any warning signs, so I moved my belongings in. The first significant issue arose 2 weeks into our relationship. Though it happened quite a while ago, the specifics are a bit hazy, but we were walking to a Whataburger, a 7-minute walk, when it unexpectedly started to rain. I think I reconsidered whether I still wanted the food, which upset him. I mentioned that he could still go and get it, but he reacted by yelling at me. I expressed that I needed a moment and walked a short distance away to sit in the rain while crying. He threatened to harm my cats, and upon hearing this, I confronted him about how unacceptable that was. I felt upset and scared to express myself further, so I left the scene. He later apologized for that comment, though his apologies are generally quite rare. When I brought it up again shortly afterward, he claimed that I never let things go. On our way back to his apartment, the police showed up, likely because they assumed he was physically abusing me as we are an interracial couple. I managed to defuse the situation, and the officers eventually departed. I want to clarify that he never physically harmed me or my pets. He later told me that I could have explained more to the officers and insinuated that perhaps he deserved the police's involvement, to which I firmly stated that he didn't deserve that treatment. On another occasion, we had a disagreement about something I thought was trivial concerning food. I barely recall what it was, but in a fit of rage, he punched a hole in the wall while I was crying. He never comforts me when I cry or inquires about my feelings. Instead, he often asserts that he believes I cry to manipulate his emotions. This is never my intention. I cry in response to being yelled at due to past traumas linked to being shouted at, and he is aware of this. He claims there is nothing I can do to change his perception, and that he will always see my tears as a means to provoke guilt in him. Another major conflict occurred about 2 months ago, and I documented the details because it brought us very close to ending things. One morning, I woke up to Wicked and Ariana Grande singing in my dream, turned over, and saw him watching the movie. I expressed that this woke me, which somehow ignited a major argument. He stormed into the living room to finish watching it but returned to yell at me, claiming he couldn't wear headphones and couldn't retreat to the living room because I would sulk if I woke alone. He claimed it was an unwinnable situation for him. I was still groggy, so I told him I didn't understand why he was so furious. In hindsight, I should have said upset, as he despises when I use mad, and prefers to dictate my emotions for me. This enraged him further, leading to remarks about how he could no longer endure this relationship, stating that he would allow me to stay until I found another place to live. He confiscated my phone, implying he would send a message depending on how the argument unfolded, presumably to my minimal contact mother who lives across the country. He informed me that his godmother, whom he frequently insults, suggested, "That girl is going to drive him insane," and he expressed that she was correct. After he screamed all of this at me, I was in tears. Although I didn't often communicate with his godmother, she had previously scolded me in a car, criticizing my concerns about my appearance when going out after he invited me to join him. She chewed me out so harshly that I ended up crying, but she later apologized, and I thought we had reconciled. It is exceptionally challenging for me to suppress my tears when feeling frightened. He directly told me, while I was in tears, that he was indifferent to my feelings. Throughout it all, I reassured him that I would work on my reactions and not act like a crybaby. He kept listing all the things about me that annoyed him. Eventually, he concluded that he would not break up with me. I spent hours crying in the room, feeling a profound sense of loss. I struggled to eat. Later, he entered acting strangely tender and soft-spoken, attempting to dance with me. The next time he came into the room, he tried to position me in a bent-over position despite my repeated attempts to stand up again without uttering a word. This occurred merely 2 hours after our previous confrontation. Obviously, I was not in the right mental state. He seemed disappointed by my lack of enthusiasm. A few hours later, he announced, "I plan to watch Gladiator 2. Are you joining me?" Knowing I had expressed interest in seeing it in theaters. I was exhausted from the lack of sleep and slept through the entire movie. When he ordered food while I was asleep, he woke me and asked if I wanted to join him. I agreed because I knew he could become upset if I didn't accompany him. He struggles with panic attacks and has trauma from a previous carjacking incident while inside his vehicle. Once we were in the backseat, I fell asleep almost instantly. He often gets irritated if we do not engage in sexual activity for a few days, labeling himself a sex addict who cannot wait long periods for intimacy. Everyday situations, such as when I change my mind about what I intended to purchase at the grocery store, lead him to snap with frustration over my indecisiveness. He might say, "But I had planned to get my favorite food," to which I responded, "Yes, but it isn't worth the cost. I'm just going to grab a soup." He yelled for about 20 minutes in the parking lot, urging me to fetch it alone, then gave me the silent treatment. This type of scenario has occurred repeatedly, and I strive to avoid changing my mind even when I cannot afford or no longer wish for a particular item. We recently had a conversation that went like this: "What are you watching?" He replied, "How could you have never seen this before?" When I asked the title, he snapped, "Why would I want to tell you?" I didn't press further, but later found out it was Glee. When I inquired about it, he reacted defensively, questioning why I was so eager to know. Most of my questions received similarly curt responses from him. I chose to remain silent, and he appeared to relax soon after. However, as I typed these thoughts, he remarked, "I know what you are doing. You're silent, so I feel guilty. It won't work." I wasn't trying to guilt him. I was merely trying to express myself clearly and objectively. He occasionally assists me with food expenses, while I often cover his financial obligations. This is partly due to a friend who has been providing me with cash since I had to leave my job as a clerk. A stalker made me feel unsafe at work, returning repeatedly to threaten me and even cornering us on the street, leading us to take refuge in a shop. He then attacked my boyfriend, who, in response, brandished a knife. It was a completely separate issue we experienced a few months ago. Regarding my cats, he has developed a strong affection for my female cat and has even jokingly implied that if we were to separate, he would want to keep her. This hit me hard because during my first relationship, I had 7 cats, and my partner kept them all along with my bunnies. I acquired my female cat 2 years ago to help mend the emotional void left by that breakup. My previous partner was always reassuring, saying that my cats would always belong to me. I told him he could never keep her since I had her long before he came into my life, but he continued to make jokes about the matter. Yes, my boyfriend is aware of my lost cats, and I miss them daily. He has always treated my kitties gently, but my female cat has become his favorite. Conversely, he does not share the same fondness for my male cat and randomly joked that he would punch him, to which I responded, "Why? He is merely sleeping next to me." His reply was that the cat's presence bothered him. He has never physically harmed him, and I genuinely believe he never will. He simply dislikes the cat hair on the bed. However, it is challenging to sleep without my pets close by. Typically, he is calm and easygoing, despite how all of this may sound. At times, he is incredibly sweet and even took me to my favorite buffet for my birthday, despite being allergic to that particular food. He genuinely attempts to engage in shared activities when he feels up to it. I wonder if our relationship can be salvaged and what I should change about my behavior, because it seems that whenever I try to communicate my emotions calmly, he responds with aggression. He asserts that I only ever express sadness, and he does not appreciate it. I apologize for the lengthy information dump. I thought it was all pertinent, and I tried to condense it. Summary: I found myself in an unsafe situation, moved in with someone I care about, but he treats me differently than I am accustomed to. When I address these concerns, he gaslights me and denies everything. I strive for mutual understanding with him,